How do you write a story that has emotion in it? I wanted to have this conversation. So, thank you guys for joining back and my third installment as to how I went about creating the story lyrics, which has been the most recent play that I've done. It's been so much fun to do it and to actually show you how I do it. Writing a story with emotion is, you should say, it's easy for us to do as writers and as creators, but it's not sometimes. Sometimes we have a premise of what we want to do, but we don't actually have it welled up inside. In my case, with the story of lyrics, this has been a story I've been contemplating for a very long time. And one of the things I wanted to do, everyone, is that I grew up and I have a real love of the genesis and the origins of hip hop music and culture. And I've seen a lot of great things that's happened, but I've also seen some other things. And when I write a story with emotion, is two things that happens or happened in this case is that the love of it, but at the same time, I wanted to honor it. I wanted to honor the story, honor the characters, honor the culture, but at the same time, add a bit of drama to it all at the same time. And I started to get this sense that the music and the culture that I love was starting to become something that was just being used willy nilly. People were interjecting hip hop and rap into anything. And I don't mind this in general because hip hop's become the universal music of the world. But I didn't want it to be just a parody of how wonderful this culture was. So I said, let me go ahead and write this story filled with my emotion, my heart, the characters that I love, the people that I love, the world that I love. Why don't I interject all of that in there? And as I started writing it, so a lot of people will tell you when you're writing a story to find out what the character's favorite color is or where did they grow up. And all of those background things are really important. But I always like to think about what is it that is making this character hurt and what is this that's making this character upset or mad or what are they trying to accomplish? And if you start from that premise, then you've got something. You've got something of meat. And I don't do it for one character. Do it for every single character in the story. What is it that he or she wants? What is the thing that he or she loves? What is the thing that makes them mad? What is the thing that gives them joy? As opposed to just, hey, I just love their black color. And I did that with lyrics. What is it that this character wants? And I shared this in part two. So for those of you who haven't seen part two, it's really about telling the story in the very first page. If you just see the first page of what I've written and you see nothing else, what's the story about? So I always try to do that. But I also want to make sure that I'm focusing on driving the emotion in there. And the one thing I shared, and I've shared this in other episodes and in other pieces of my series, is that when the story I feel it and it makes me laugh and I like think that joke is corny or funny and or I get mad, then I know personally as a writer that I'm onto something. If I don't feel those things, then I may be telling a story and it might be okay, it might be pretty cool, it might be good on some level, but is it really something for me? Is it really something that will resonate with me and resonate with the audience? I'm not sure. All I know is that I am definitely sure when it comes to telling a story when I say that makes me mad as a listener or as a reader or as someone who's understanding this. If that makes me mad, then I know I've got something. If it doesn't, I don't know. So this is part three, figuring it out. And when you're writing it, everyone, listen up a little bit. When you're writing the story, let yourself loose. Let yourself feel free to write it. Forget your outline when you're actually writing what you're writing. If what you're writing is telling you, I am going down a path that I don't know how that may or may not turn out, then let yourself go down that path. Do not be beholden to what you say is supposed to happen. There are many a time I'm writing a story and the story takes a life of its own and it does not go where the outline says it's supposed to be. And I enjoy that. Let it go where it needs to go. Do not feel constrained because the moment you feel constrained, you are not creating your best story. You're creating a story that you might want to, or maybe you feel commissioned to do, but you're not necessarily telling it the way that you want to from your most authentic self. In the story of lyrics, the characters Solomon and Colette and Malcolm and Max and Tyrese and Latoya, they all have a motivation and they all feel something. They all feel an undying love of hip hop on some level. And they were there when it was in its golden era. And some may debate that it's still in the golden era. All I know is that it felt great to do that. And I felt every single page. And there's sometimes they were telling me the story. Even though I thought I knew what I was writing, they were telling me the story. And do not feel a fear, everyone, of taking something that's happened in your life or an observation in life as close to home as you feel comfortable and interjecting into the story. Every single story that I've written, there are parts of life in the story. There are parts of whether it's something I observed or something that personally happened to me that is in the story. Those who are close to me can probably see snippets of me within every single one of the characters or in the story or in the dialogue or somewhere else. It's always in there. Don't be afraid of it. Rise up and embrace the fear that you might have. Say, I don't want to say that. That might have a bad word, or that might be too intense for my audience. Rise up and face it head on and take it anyway. Write it anyway. That is how you're interjecting the emotion and the tension of the story. And the last bit I'll say about tension, and this is something I learned from a teacher many, many years ago, is that when I'm writing a story and I have this outline, I have this propensity that whenever I'm writing it and I say, well, this is what's supposed to happen, I feel like I'm heaping more on the characters. I like to throw them as much stuff as possible. And sometimes it goes across the outline, gets trashed because I want the tension to feel palatable. I want the audiences sitting in the pews sitting in the rows to be able to actually feel, to actually be able to feel the tension. And sometimes the tension is not the written word. Sometimes the tension is a directive that I told an actor, just don't say a thing, just be a thing. Whatever that is. Just, just make sure that the tension rises. And this is me. There are many writers and there's many stories that I've gone to where it's a slow burn. Things meander and they take a while and it's a treatment or it's a couple of people just having a chat. And then at the end of the story, it's all a revelation or something gets unearthed and it comes out to be pretty good. There's sometimes it's like that. For me as a writer, that's not my style. I need to feel the energy of my character. I need to feel their hurt. And it's not just in the words. This is not long expositions I'm saying. There's small little things that someone can say or do. And when you're writing a story, sometimes you just italicize a word. Or you make a word bold. Or you put an ellipses on it. You do something in order to make the actors get the cue that this is something I should emphasize or de-emphasize. That way you help to build a rise in action. Back when I was in school, all of you have probably seen this before. You have a story, you have the open, etc. Then you got the rise in action, the climax, and then you got the fall in action. That premise works for the most part. I think we've all become smart enough to understand when we see it coming. We can see it. I can see a screenplay coming a mile away. I can tell the beats of a story super fast all the time. That's okay. But it still doesn't mean that I or you, as a writer, have to adhere to anyone's particular guideline. You can rise attention and rise it and rise it and rise as much as you want, or don't. It can be a slow burn. Like I said, I've seen some stories that have been slow burn, and I'm going like this with my eyes, and eventually I go, oh, got it. It all came together at the end. That's how I went about creating the emotion and the tension of lyrics. What was it that hurt Solomon? And I won't reveal this whole thing because I want you to go see the play. But what was it that made him hurt? And what was he trying to accomplish? What hurt Colette? And what was she trying to accomplish? Those things drive your story. Start with those things even more than the premise or the great scenery or the flowery stages and the sets and all of that. Make sure the premise of why your characters are trying to win is there. I hope you join me for part 4 of why and how I started to create the story lyrics. I appreciate you all so much, and I will see you again